Very good. Hey everyone, welcome to Ambre, a heartbreaking kinetic novel on Steam about a man who finds a little girl and brings her to his house? What the fuck? I have no idea what this is, but it's trending on Steam, so I thought it must be good, it must be interesting. I'm intrigued. Although, like, even with the weirdness. So I mean, let's just jump into it. That's the only way to figure it out, right? It's the only way to figure out if it's worth anything. It's free to play, so I mean, I don't care. Before we jump into this thing, whatever it may be, make sure you do all these things below to keep up with more shit like this. Yep, more shit like this. Commencer. Charger. Options. Quitter. Fuck. Commencer. Okay. We're commencing it. So it's like a novel, it is. It's not in English. Options? Music. Sons, I need it in English. Hey, there we are. English. Thank you. Oh, okay, start. Oh, that was weird. It was 7 p.m. On that beautiful yet cold autumn day. The wind shook the frail tree's branches across the street. Okay. Tristan Mallory. It's very loud. I can barely hear myself. Tristan Mallory made his slow, tired way. What? A whirlwind of leaves caught his attention, and he stopped to contemplate them for a few minutes. Huh. A spray of colours danced around him. Fragments of red, orange, yellow spread at random, forming a mosaic that stretched on as far as the eye could see endlessly. It's hard to keep up with this. I don't know where it ends. A rush of beauty in that grey and fuming city, in that noisy metropolis that was constantly exhaling bad air. Okay, so this is Tristan. Coming back to his senses, the 30-year-old man, that we already explained that, shook his head. Now wasn't the time to be daydreaming. He had to go home. The long day already weighed on his shoulders. But if he was completely honest, work wasn't the most tiring thing in his life. After all, an honest, well-paid job represented somewhat of a luxury these days. Like any model employee, he consciously accomplished the tasks handed to him. No more, no less. No, what was really destroying him was a completely different form of fatigue. An appalling and crushing solitude that had been shadowing him for years. Ever since his wife... What happened to his wife? The light tinkling of the front door opening brought him back to earth. He was already at his flat. A sad and silent living room was waiting for him. That's depressing. Goosebumps travelled down his spine as he entered the room. Driven by an almost desperate urge, he didn't even bother to hang his coat correctly and began slamming all of the doors one after the other. Each time, the same emptiness answered his pleads. He felt a rising dread within. His last hope, the last door, the forbidden room beyond. He opened it slightly and peeked inside. Of course, there wasn't anyone. He fell heavily on the sofa. The crushing solitude came back in full force, crushing him again and again, wounding his face with invisible cuts. The cuts of time. It was happening again. All of a sudden, Tristan Mallory felt immensely exhausted. He held his head in his hands, staring at the floor for long minutes. Then, after what felt like an eternity, he abruptly got to his feet. He gathered all of the framed pictures that had been on the furniture and stowed them away in a closet. The memories needed to be out of sight. When he was sure there was no more pictures sticking out, Tristan put his coat back on and rushed outside. It was chilly, a bit dark, but there was still enough light to see by. It was the ideal time to take a walk, at least that's what he could have thought. As he hurried along the sidewalk, the 30-year-old man, again, yeah we know, was anything but relaxed. As he hurried, incredibly nervous, this is what I'm talking about. He walked around the places that were most familiar to him, looking for a serenity that seemed to be definitely out of reach. While passing a park near his home, Tristan Mallory suddenly heard a high-pitched, almost inaudible plea. His heart jumped, and he stopped. A little girl. What are you gonna do, Tristan? You weirdo. In the dim light, achievement unlocked, a lost little girl. In the dim light of the setting sun, he made out the silhouette of a little girl sitting on a swing with her head bowed. Tears were rolling down her cheeks. Afraid of startling her, he approached her slowly and took a closer look. Why would... her clothes were crumpled. She had neither a coat nor a scarf, and there were scratches on several spots of her skin, as if she had been in a fight. The park was completely deserted, and he seemed to have been there for a while, or she seemed to have been there for a while. For a second, Tristan felt the temptation to abandon her there, to leave her to her fate, but very quickly he mentally chastised himself. He couldn't do that, so he placed himself in front of her and asked her in a "What is this game? Is something wrong?" At first the little girl seemed not to hear him. She choked on her sobs, hiccuped and shuddered. Patiently, Tristan Mallory stroked her hair and repeated, "Why are you crying? What happened?" "Tristan is strange. I don't like him." It took her long minutes to calm down a bit, but eventually she wiped her tears and answered with a faint voice interrupted by sobs. "I don't know. I think I lost something important. Really important. But I can't remember what it was." What is that voice? Tristan Mallory sighed, feeling a mixture of compassion and pity. She seemed so lost, so vulnerable. Is Tristan a pedophile? He wanted to hold her so tight. What? That her sadness would melt away. And at the same time, within him, a voice was telling him that he shouldn't have been too forceful. That he shouldn't take it. Is this game safe for, YouTube? So he tried not to lose face. It was on Steam, so it must be to look reassuring. Yet in front of this sad little girl, he did not feel confident at all. "Are you all alone? Where are your mom and dad?" "I don't know." "Do you live far away from here?" "I don't know." "What's your name?" "Ambre." "Well, Ambre, you can't stay here out in the wind. You're gonna catch a cold eventually. And you don't want to get sick, do you?" "Nah, I hate being sick." That does not sound like a little girl. "See? You got to go warm yourself up somewhere. The night's getting close." "But I don't know where to go." "In that case, what do you think about going to my place? It's not too far away from here, and it'll make a much better sleep. I'm not sure I want to play as this character anymore." Ambre seemed to worry, but she had no other choice but to follow him. He gently reached a hand to her, and for the first time, she lifted her eyes. They were washed out, blurry with tears, and hesitant. He thought it a good idea to force a smile, to appear reassuring. Even with the fatigue, Tristan showed the most convincing smiling face he could, and caught her hand so fine and frail to help. Honestly, this is the weirdest game I've ever played. The young girl's steps were wobbly and weak. She had probably not eaten all day long. He led her. He's 30. She's like 10. He led her to his place while making sure she wouldn't trip. The 30-year-old man removed his coat and shut the front door behind him. "Make yourself at home, I'll cook you something." Passing through the kitchen, he turned on the light in the living room so that his flat would look less gloomy. While roaming through his fridge looking for a good meal idea, he periodically stole several glances over the counter. In the living room, Ambre was still walking around, a bit wild. Still on the defensive. She explored this new environment by looking around, admiring the ornaments. Unfortunately, she didn't find much to pique her interest. It was a bland house, almost too bland. There were no clues about the occupants' lives. He's a pervert, it's pretty obvious. Passing through the kitchen, he turned on... Yeah, we know that. Yes. Taking advantage of Tristan being distracted by a packet of noodles. What? She escaped to the hallway and tried to find the bathroom to relive an urgent need. She found it quickly enough, and before returning to the hallway, she noticed that all the doors were wide open, except for one. Strangely, before she even had the time to think about it, she was drawn to that doorway. Intrigued, Ambre felt... The music turned off. What's going on? Ambre felt magnetically attracted by the slightly open door. Just one peek was all she wanted, but she struggled to see anything through the crack. A frightened... Right? Was this Bluebird's cabinet? A frightening tomb where Tristan Mallory stored the corpses of his former wife? What? The little girl pushed the door open and entered the room and switched the light on. Who wrote this? It was a bedroom filled with plushes and soft cushions. A big bed was proudly displayed in the center room, accompanied by a pretty dressing table to one side. The walls are painted to a look like a bright blue sky. The storage furniture, coordinated with the sweet colours of trinkets, were overflowing with mysteries. On the nightstand, she could catch a glimpse of a nightlight shaped as a cute mascot. There was a fairy-like ambience within this, about this strange room, to the extent that Ambre couldn't repress a little exclamation of surprise. Closing the door so that the 30-year-old, yes, he's 30, wouldn't discover her hiding spot, she stretched out the colourful bed, rolled it into a ball, jumped about and snuck under the bed sheets. What the hell is happening? Inexplicably, she felt at an ease in this room worthy of a princess. It seemed to have been built for her, to correspond to her every fantasy. Either Tristan's a pervert, or he had a daughter once. She then approached a big teddy bear which was tempting her. She grabbed it immediately, hugged it, and covered it in kisses. Her pale face was illuminated by a wide, pure, innocent smile. A child smile. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Tristan Malloy had finished cooking. We know his name. Had finished cooking the noodles and was about to serve the meal when he noted the absence of the little girl. Slightly worried, he called for her. I'm gonna save just really quick. Ambre? Ambre, are you here? Nervous, he looked after her in all the rooms, checking to see if she was in the bathroom. He searched everywhere in the house until there was only... The entry door makes a lot of noise when it's open, so I wouldn't have heard it if she had left. I would have heard it if she left. Could she be in there already? With a contrite sigh, he headed towards the fully lit forbidden room and discovered Ambre playing with stuffed animals. His gaze softened. I suppose that I can't do anything, he thought to reassure himself. Without a word, he went to sit next to her. Ah, I lost video. I didn't see that. Oh, I mean, you didn't see what was happening there, but you could have imagined it. Yeah. It never tells me. Maybe that was what that noise was, but I didn't hear it. Back to the game then. Now you can see again, see? I'll just show this picture just to, you know. On the bed, the little girl was moving the stuffed animal's hands while making them speak. In her weak voice, she was narrating a stuffed animal tea party and seemed to be enjoying herself very much. The light was in the back of her eyes. Suddenly, she got mad at a plump cow and scolded her harshly. It's dirty! Stop it right now! You're making a mess! Ali, what did I say? It's dirty! Gotta behave yourself! Eh! What the hell? And don't roll on the floor! You shouldn't make a fuss just because you didn't get what you wanted. As punishment, she sent the cow in a corner while ordering her not to move and replaced it with a pony with long eyelashes. The stuffed animal tea party, hosted by the blue monkey, was obviously not going as planned. The 30-year-old man examined... We know he's 30... Okay, yes. And examined the little girl's every move with care. She does not look happy. She finally noticed his presence. He felt he had to speak. Are you having fun? Are you having fun? Yeah, I didn't know there was a bedroom like this in your house. Whose room is it? It was my wife's favorite room before she left. What happened to her? It's a long story. Maybe I'll tell you another time. What happened to Tristan? Don't ask me. Meanwhile, the meal is getting colder. Don't you want to eat? I'm coming right now. What's for dinner? Bolognese sauce with pasta. Pasta. Great. Great, I love it. Yeah. That evening, Tristan admired little Ambre. She what? Half amused, half distracted. Seeing her so happy suited his heart a little, but at the same time, are you tired? The child suddenly asked with a serious air. A little. I worked hard today. She didn't make any more comment. Still amazed by the princess's bedroom, she revived the topic with starry eyes. Do you like it? Yeah, a lot. I wish you had a similar room. If you want, I give it to you. I give it to you? Jeez, Tristan. You need to work up on that English there, yeah? What? My wife left a long time ago. Her stuff is still inside and I don't use it. So if you like, it's yours. You can stay in her room while I'm looking for your parents and what you lost. What do you say? Can I really? But it doesn't belong to me. There is nothing sadder than a house without life, don't you think? Don't you think? I know that my wife loved to rest in her favourite room. There she felt at ease, like on a cloud. But now, she's not even living here anymore. Ah! Since you seem to like this place, I think it would make her happy to know that her bedroom is in good hands. And I can do whatever I want in it. While I'm at work, you'll be able to play in this room as much as you want. The way he's talking, I think he's going to keep her or something. I'll leave you some leftovers for the lunch. Leftovers? You'll only have to heat them up in the microwave, and in the evening, we'll play together if you like to. Do I need to go to school? No more school. Only games. Yeah, great then. I'm getting a strange feeling. Stranger than all those other strange feelings about Tristan. Something's up with this guy. I don't like him. In front of Ambre's overflowing enthusiasm, Tristan couldn't help but smile faintly. Yes, that indeed, he kept telling himself, as if to reassure himself. All I'm doing is keeping her around until she remembers who she is, waiting for her to remember. Thus began their strange routine. Tristan woke up early in the morning to go to work. But before leaving and rushing into the fog, he had to take a few minutes of preparation to face the daily grind. A few brief minutes on the threshold to gaze at the sleeping Ambre. What? Then he ran away through the streets covered by dead leaves, escaping far away, toward the mountains of paperwork. Toward the baleful tower furnished by vast offices where the slaves chained to their computers toiled away for the lord of that place. It's too fast. Slow down. Anyway, that was what the little girl thought of his working day looked like. As for her, she woke up easily around 9 AM and her first reflex was to stretch and yawn in front of her cartoons with a bowl of cereals in hand. She followed her favourite heroines' adventures. All of them were beautiful and courageous. All of them were friends for life. Princesses with elegant superpowers covered with light effects. Slow down and flower petals. Rich and loved, they lived a perfect and enviable experience, especially the main character, who owned a bedroom very similar to her. It was colourful and filled with cute accessories. However, this room was only part of a bigger palace furnished the same way. How I'd like to live in a castle as well. Why is it so fast? Slow down. With cute animals as her friends, the heroine hunted the villains, fell into traps and called for the help of her charming prince, an ideal and fans who served her hand and foot. Life seemed easy, full of laughs and adventures. All that was needed was to send back the bad woman to her hiding place in the darkness. After all, she was nasty because she envied the young dazzling girls, nasty because she was old and delusioned. Ambre would have loved to have magical powers, allowing to make cute outfits appear, allowing her to have a stable where unicorns slept, allowing her to have a ballroom where she could organize extravagant parties based on beautiful dresses and cupcakes. It was always really disappointing for her to see the end of the episode. Of course, there were other programs, but the story with magical jewels was her favorite. When the cartoons ended, she went to fill in her coloring books in her room, daydreaming about being among those heroines, and then at midday, she heated up the leftovers that Tristan had left and went back to watching TV. New programs awaited her. Again, she had her favorite, the one where a little girl owned a puppy that was different from the others. It was a red puppy who could sneak around. It was very adorable, with its big eyes and its comical expressions, that it made her melt. Right, sorry about that. A lot of problems. I was gone about an hour, actually. So, how I would like to have a dog that cute. The meal passed quickly to the rhythm of opening songs that she knew by heart. This was usually the time that Tristan chose to call and make sure everything was okay. She never missed this opportunity to tell him the content of the episodes of the day. how the heroine had defeated the evil witch with her magical mirror, or how the little dog had helped her mistress at school. Relieved, he would start eating his sandwiches without appetite, but sated by the little girl's words. She hung up, satisfied with her story, and usually turned off the television after the last cartoon to make a nap in her big bed, surrounded by her stuffed toys. In general, at this time, she read a fairy tale. She loved to tell herself the story of Cinderella again and again while sucking a teddy bear's ear. It was her favourite. People and life itself were nasty with Cinderella. She had to work hard. It was exhausting. She had to earn her meal, and the nasty ugly sisters believed themselves superior. Of course, Cinderella, yeah. Fortunately, the prince recognized that heroine's natural talent. She was pretty and that she was special. He brought her with him to his castle to live in a golden existence, where she wouldn't have to work her fingers to the bone, where money flowed freely, where Cinderella could have everything she wanted, including all the things that shone, accessories, dress and cakes. All she had to do was, we know Cinderella, we're not playing Cinderella, okay? Can we just skip, yeah, Cinderella was happy, and stuff. Now, is it Amber or is it Ambre? I'm not sure, I'm gonna stick with, Ambre. It sounds wrong. Maybe I'll just stick with Amber. Amber fell asleep happy, hoping to meet her charming prince one day. The one who would only have eyes for her and would give her a room like the one the princesses she admired so much had. When she opened her eyes, the little girl rushed in the living room to watch a tape, a Disney movie. Depending on her mood, she chose one with animals or one with a couple who lived happily ever after. Lived in Snow White or the Little Mermaid. Amber loved the idea of a glass coffin containing a body which would not grow old despite death, that would remain always young and beautiful, lying in wait to be freed from a prison, for the magical kiss that would change the course of the day. You're gonna explain Sleeping Beauty now? Snow White? Whatever. The prince spirited her away from the common holt. Disney copyright, yeah? Those proletarian dwarves who were friendly but so uncold. She also loved the idea of a beautiful and rebellious mermaid swimming through the oceans, looking for treasures but sacrificing her freedom for the man in love, sacrificing the endless. It's just explaining fairy tales. The beautiful and rebellious mermaid never listened to anyone else, which reminded her of her own condition. She was too a sweet, capricious girl. She played these tapes in a loop, day after day, until snack time came. By then, stuffed with idyllic images, she dug into the sweets that Tristan bought her for her: cupcakes, colourful macaroons, pastries, bread, and Nutella. Of course, there were cartoons at this time as well. Well, of course. As it was getting late, she finally pushed the off button to resume her fantasies elsewhere in her room, wielding her dolls with skill, perfectly tracing the course of her dreams. Is Tristan gonna find her parents already? But the high point of the day was probably when Tristan finally returned from work. She's alone all this, throughout the whole day. It's not right. Not right, no. She would rush into the living room to greet him, and all joyous, she would show herself to him, timidly at first, then with more enthusiasm over the weeks. She loved being carried on his shoulders to mimic the airplane and to fly through the flat until they crashed on the bed, laughing. Playing together was so much fun. You're still a stranger though, right? This is still weird, right? I mean, is this a graphic novel or something? Like, playing together was so much fun. It was very sick. Well, it's not. It's subtle, but it's there. It's strange, it's weird. With her friend, she could give life to her characters more easily. Her favourites playing Mummy and Daddy. Amber played the role of her mother, always occupied by the well-being of her child. A PVC doll with dead eyes, supposed to embody an adorable little baby. What? She had to wash him, change him, cuddle him, and give him his bottle. Tristan had the role of the father. He's playing with her too. Tristan, where's her parents? You said you were going to look for her parents. You bastard, I know what you're doing. You sick. A role which hardly got him involved, but he was more than satisfied with that. Amber took her task very seriously. She had the lead role after all. She doesn't look happy. Therefore, she served her imaginary husband plastic fries and fruits with a bossy pout. A bossy pout. He appreciated the gesture. However, the real meal was left to Tristan's charge once the game ended. A meal which the little girl took as an opportunity to deliver the rest of her fabulous adventures. I'm gonna just go ahead and save. Ah! Alright. A meal, yeah. Tristan only had to listen to her with a smile on his face before requiring her to go to the bathroom to wash up and brush her teeth. Amber always grumbled at bedtime, but her sexless Barbie mermaid quickly helped her forget about the inconvenience. This is weird. What am I playing? More than once, I think it's just the writing is just really strange when it's translated. Maybe that's it. Hopefully, you know. It might be Japanese. If it's Japanese, then, you know, you might be a bit more suspicious. If you know what I mean. That was Japanese, man. She slyly waited for the 30-year-old man once again. He's 30, by the way. You didn't know that? Stupid. Everyone knows he's 30. To come up close enough for her to shoot him with a fish-shaped water gun. Innocent laughter would ensue. I'm talking so much, my throat is getting really bad. Then the little girl had to be tucked into her big princess's bed while he was telling her a story, usually a fairy tale. Why is everything purple? Is it a nightlight? In those moments, she blinked more and more slowly, looking up to him with a touching expression. Tristan would always melt with cuteness. He was careful not to close the door all the way. The corridor's light had to hunt the monsters which could disturb Amber's sleep. It was a specific request from her. She was fearful. The 30-year-old man had to protect her from ghosts at the slightest shout. That was his promise to her. Before going to sleep, Tristan Malloy found some comfort in contemplating her asleep. He hoped that her sleep would be inhabited with nice dreams, that she wouldn't forget him, that she would think about him in whatever way it may be. Could she even feel his presence, or how much he cared for her? Just how much does he care for her? The way they organised their weekend allowed for a more festive time. It was time for outings. It was out of the question for Amber to get bored. The shut in the tight and bleak flat again. She had to see some landscape. So they went to the lively places. The pool, the amusement park, the ice rink, the movie theatre, restaurants. She had to try everything. Every week was a different universe. Running along at a brisk pace with her impeccably polished shoes, the little girl jumped from ride to ride while hanging on Tristan's arm. It warmed his heart to see her having innocent fun. In front of a smile that big, he could only imitate the little girl's good mood despite himself. Yeah, he's a bit of a downer, isn't he? Every time, inevitably, when she would ask for a dessert, a pancake or an ice cream, and he would watch her out of the corner of his eye, spreading whipped cream. What the fuck? The temptation to lick the... Read that. I'm not reading out loud. You read that there. I have people downstairs that are probably... I mean, I'm not reading that out loud. I mean, come on. There's obviously something wrong with him. Man, what is happening with this game? Such a display, both childish and unhealthy. Tickled his darkest thoughts. His most pity. What is wrong with him? However hard he rejected them with all his strength, his hands became sweaty and trembling. His hand confessed his torment. But Amber couldn't understand. Amber was a little girl. Only a little girl. What the fuck? The months flew by at a breakneck speed. Tristan refused to admit it, but his young prodigy was growing up. He wanted to ignore the fact, turn a blind eye, but the unstoppable passage of time had already started to do its work. Amber was going through a strange crisis. That evening, she was particularly angry and proclaimed vigorously, "I don't want to be a child anymore." "How so?" "I want to become older." "But you have plenty of time for this, Amber." I want to become older faster. That way I could do more things." The 30-year-old man sighed. He obviously did not know how to answer such assertions. He left the girl to sulk in the living room to take a long and relaxing shower. While he was soothing his worries in a rush of hot water, she displayed an angry pout. Again. It's not recording again, shit. That's not fair. I wish I could be older right now. If only I had a model. What? I found out looking back, I didn't even read it properly, I didn't take it in, that he didn't have a kid before, so he's just weird, man. I wonder what Tristan's wife looked like. For example, I'm sure that she was a kind person. Who says to themselves, for example? But he never wants to talk about it. He avoids the subject. It could be that he's hiding something from me. Intrigued, Amber took advantage of his absence to open a drawer she had never touched before. Inside, under the telephone directory, was a big leather notebook. Browsing through the pictures, the little girl discovered her guardian, young, in arms of a coquettish young lady. Ah, that's Tristan. Before he became what he is now. Dressed soberly and tastefully, she was strolling alongside the seashore with a shawl on her shoulders and a pack holding an ice cream. But what caught her eye was a very specific picture that towered in the center of the album. Tristan, wearing a suit, was leading his lover out of a church with clumsy footsteps under a shower of flower petals. She looked so happy, so fulfilled, in her large, refined white dress, that Amber was stupefied. Stupefy! That was shit. All the more so as the bride looked exactly like her. She's so pretty. What are you looking at? I mean, what are you looking at? Jeez. Too much reading. It is a novel. Tristan's sudden appearance made her jump, so much that she dropped the forbidden object. The 30-year-old man, he's 30, yep, gaze darkened immediately. He darkened. You searched through the closet to see what my wife looked like, did you? She answered in a shaky voice, guiltily. Yes. Are you gonna scold me? Of course not. I just would have preferred that you didn't see it. Why? Why don't you ever talk about her? I want to know. Appearing upset as he looked into those begging eyes, as that he had never seen able to resist. I don't know what the hell. Reluctantly, he sat down on the couch and told her how he met the one he thought would be the love of his life and related all that they had gone through together. Amber listened with wide-eyed attention. She liked that story very much. Tristan seemed to briefly get younger as he evoked the past, describing how head over heels he had been for her and how happy she had made him. This peaceful and ordinary everyday life was something the little girl envied. Caught up in the tale, she couldn't help but pressure him. And then, what happened? Until the light shining in the man's green eyes brutally vanished. And then... She left. Where to? Far away, to a place where I can't reach her anymore. Every day I pray she'll somehow hear me, that she'll wake up, that she'll remember me. I don't know if she'll ever emerge from that dream that's keeping her captive. Is she dead? Sometimes it feels like it. But no, she's still alive. She's still alive? What? Just in a different world from mine. If I could have joined her, I would have. I would have sacrificed everything for her. And today, she's forgotten me. Forever. That's sad. Tristan sighed again, head down as a heavy crushing silence came between them. Amber stared at the photo, bewitched by the woman's smile. Deep down in her heart she had an odd thought. If I was older, I could replace Tristan's wife and he wouldn't be sad anymore. That night she left the devastated Tristan lying as immobile as a statue on the sofa. Slipping between the covers of her cozy bedsheets, she felt helpless. If only I was older. The thought took root and more violently in her mind to the point where it became it became an emergency. She had to become Tristan Mallory's wife. This is getting weird. Even weirder. Even more so than it was. A new routine seized little Amber. Seems that Amber's strange as well. A new routine seized little Amber. It was now out of the question for her to stay a little girl. She wanted to grow as prematurely as a butterfly. A beauty cursed by an ephemeral life. Never heard that word before. Thus began a a kind of adolescence. She no longer woke up in the morning when the 30-year-old went to work. She waited until midday to surface and took her meal at that time. Tristan did not call her at the usual hour anymore. He knew that she would not be in the mood. After a brief meal, the young girl watched television while leafing through magazines bought with the pocket money her benefactor gave her. Her afternoon fluctuated between the American TV shows and beauty tips. Between the pages of the magazine, she learned how to become pretty to what? What? I don't know that word. She wanted Tristan to look at her, to take an interest in her in a different way. To be seen as a woman, she had to act as one, but she also didn't know how to do this. Because she's a little girl. She can't just grow up. These magazines, which were overflowing with the tips of all kinds, seemed like an El Dorado to her. Through the articles she learned how to act, how to become a true lady. She's still a kid though. It wasn't complicated. She only had to keep a close watch on all her gestures, to control her every movement permanently so as to convey the best image possible. She had to track down all human weaknesses, every inconvenience, and walk with a relaxed and self-assured air. But not too much, or she would frighten, she would crush. Amber nodded as she was reading what the editor wrote. Just gonna save there. Of course she had to become open and smiling, but not so much that she came across as exuberant. She had to laugh often, but not too loudly, as it was what hysterics would do. She had to be independent and take initiative, but only if the situation lends itself to it and in a non-threatening way. She had to show herself to be as natural as possible while enhancing all her advantages with a note of makeup. Amber understood the necessity of buying some in order to become a true woman. She had to dress in a feminine way to demonstrate her worth while being sober enough so as to not attract unwanted attention. And then she was advised to learn to listen to men, not to talk too much, which would be selfish, but to be discreet but present, available as soon as he would need it without really showing it to him. As she turned page after page, the young girl felt a pressing urge to spend money on all the products shown in the advertisements and praised by the editors. After all, she would need them in order to seduce the brave Tristan. How could she have the slightest chance without cheating a little? Further down, revealing psychological tests claimed that Amber would gain more affection by acting like a fragile little girl. What? Men needed to be reassured of their vitality and of the protector's role. Plus she herself lost video again. Okay, back to it. Okay, so I lost the video again. I keep losing it. I just wasn't prepared for such a long game. I didn't realize. A psychological test claimed that Amber would gain more affection by acting like a fragile little girl. Men needed to be reassured of their virility and of their protector's role. Plus, she herself was too vulnerable, too frail. She couldn't manage anything worthy without some help. She had to find validation in his eyes. Validation of her very existence. If he thinks that I'm pretty, I'll be pretty, like in that photograph. Like this, Amber spent her afternoons reading tips from women's magazines, training herself to conceal. When she wasn't watching series, often romantic ones, she was shopping in the city to bring back clothes, accessories, and cosmetics. The city, like the television, constantly spat images of absolute and infinite love, of a perfect and purifying love, like a drug, an obligation, a flawless pleasure, and an order. Every billboard sold the same dream. Oh, so cliché. Oh, so desirable. It was the pursuit of the fairy tale formula, and they lived happily ever after in an opulence and had lots of children. Novels and movies and heroines all ran after the same goal. Ran after the lure of profit, wealth, luxury, a life where everything would be easy, but where everything would have lost its taste, a dull and hollow life, an eternal masquerade. But this existential emptiness was just as easy to fill. You only had to consume and be consumed. You only needed to devote your soul to spend even more, to remove the vestiges of nature, to hide that ridiculous body, too personal, too imperfect, too real, and to replace it with an ethereal sheed, a mirage. You only just needed to spend without restraint in order to conquer the piggy bank of your dreams. A mere machine that gives banknotes and weak orgasms to present yourself like a diamond. A beautiful shiny trinket that everyone should have in their living room. You only need to destroy your own value, immaterial, and replace it with a cold, harsh cash. And then you only need to bask in idleness. Go around in circles in your cage without any purpose to continue living in a dignified way, wandering like a lost soul, disguised as a clown that drips with a grim automation. You needs to fill the hole. You needs to fill the hole. The absence of life. You needs to do that. That disease that devours your blood, all your authenticity with money, always more money. Buy, until you forget the unease, the angst. Amber admired today's celebrities. Those picture-perfect idols in which nothing stuck out, bodies that exuded not even the slightest trace of life. Those uninspired songs that only glorified a permanent state of pleasure without toil. Like massively produced Barbie dolls, clones by the dozens, all those creatures merged into a single canon of beauty, deemed as unsurpassable, absolute truth. The stars dived into this endless cycle of vanity with such ease that it was truly fascinating. Every minute that passed after a singer's first success was a minute of intense scrutiny as the whole world glued its eyes on the morbid show that was her slow suffocation, her imminent drowning. Nothing could be more enjoyable, more exquisite, yes, than staring at those young women slowly being engulfed by the shadowy tentacles of their dreams. They had sacrificed their bodies to the guts of plastic surgery scalpels to the point of no longer resembling themselves anymore, to the point of transforming into some kind of wonderful monsters. They had rejected their personalities and histories to melt into the mold, to conform themselves to the public's every expectation, to become the showcase of modernity, the icons of this single form of happiness that was advertised at every street corner. A form of happiness that little Amber stared hungrily at. Becoming a star seemed out of her reach, but looking like one was a duty that women's magazines never ceased to remind her of. That frivolous press, so uncomplicated, so fraught with consequences. That was a lot to read. I had a bit of a break, so my voice is a bit better. When Tristan came home at the end of his working day, he would find Amber waiting hand and foot, trying to cook delicious meals for him. Amber always elegant, craving to look her best, like a perfect little housewife with a strong character. He was past the point of missing the innocent days, but in all honesty, he didn't even understand why a young girl was putting so much effort into becoming such a perfect creature. Her parents! It's months down the line, she's a missing child. What? Am I the only one that's sane here? One evening, while she was cooking a usual dish for which the recipe was recommended on TV, accompanied by a candlelit table in order to celebrate his birthday, he dared to ask, "But Amber, why are you doing all of that for me?" The honest question hit like a ton of bricks. The complete incomprehension that was his sounded like an insult. She probably spent hours gussying up in the bedroom. Hours to appear fit to be seen, fresh, and she probably spent hours tidying the house, cleaning every nook and cranny until it was spotless. She probably spent hours decorating, taking care of his godforsaken roast, laboriously cutting vegetables, and here he was asking her for why she was trying so hard. Look at her face! The knife in her hands fell violently to the floor, emitting a metallic sound that was very much like an ill omen. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? She's shaking. Amber's voice trembled dangerously. While getting close, he noticed her hands were shaking frenetically. Eyes wide open, soaked in tears, she exploded. Because I want you to love me. I want you to look at me. Why don't you ever look at me? Am I not good enough? Is that it? I'll never be as good as she was, will I? She? But Amber, who are you talking about? Dumbfounded, Tristan held her in his arms as tightly as he could. No, he truly couldn't understand. He couldn't understand such intense and sudden sobs. Reassured by his gesture, Amber wanted to explain herself. I'm sorry. I'll never be able to replace her. Who are you trying to replace, Amber? Tell me. Your wife. I can see that her departure left you very sad. I want to bring a smile back to your face. I want to take her place so you'd forget about her. For a split second, Tristan Mallory Mallory. Is it Mallory or Mallory? Was I saying Mallory this whole time? I think it might be Mallory. Was breathless. It was surreal. He would have pinched himself to make sure he wasn't dreaming, but no, the pain in his chest was far too real, too pitiful, carved in him. How could he answer such a declaration? How could he find the right words? Catching his breath with difficulty, the 30-year-old man took Amber by the shoulders and looked in her eyes for a long time. After a brief sigh, he affirmed, "Listen, I will never be able to forget my wife, alright? It's impossible. That doesn't mean I don't want you. It's the exact opposite, actually. You're very dear to me, Amber. You hear me? I need you. I already have her placed. So, please, stop crying. Don't make it harder than it already is." The young girl shyly dried her tears and her features changed to an adorably naive expression. She looked sincerely despaired. "You're okay with me? What made you think I'd abandon you, huh?" "Nothing, it's just that you seem to love her so much. I'm a bit jealous." "Why is that?" "I don't know. When I look at those pictures, I can't help but tell myself I must absolutely make you happy. I think I love you." Tristan felt all the courage and determination he had worked up melting away overnight, and he started sobbing as well. "But I love you too. I've loved you for so long. I love you so much it makes me sick." "For real? You're not treating me like a kid?" "She is a kid though." "Of course not. Then prove it. What do you mean? Show me you regard me as a true woman." "You want me to do that?" Amber silently nodded. She seemed dead set on it. So Tristan softly... What? I don't know. I mean... So he kisses her now, but like, she's still a kid. I don't know. The warm and pleasurable feeling went to his head. It's just this game, isn't it? For a few seconds, he felt as if he was holding his wife in his arms, as if she had come back for real. Delicate skin, which smelled deliciously like vanilla, reminded him the author of this game is messed up. Long afternoons spent laughing in the sun, peaceful evenings under the light of the stars or by a fire, of a shared umbrella to shelter from the storm. She was here, so close, so far, within a finger's reach. He only had to close his eyes and believe in his dream. The illusion smiled faintly at him. At his limit, he embraced her. "If you only knew how much I love you." He had so many things he would have wished to tell her, so many that the flood of words blocked his throat and nothing could come out. So for lack of words to make her understand his feelings, he used his body. When dawn's rays of light crept through the window, Amber was profoundly asleep, lying atop Tristan's eyes surrounded by dark circles, the weight of regrets, a fatigue he couldn't get rid of. He stared at her with a sad smile on his face. It was just a dream, wasn't it? When you wake up, you'll be a child again, right? The only answer he was getting was a light groaning. Softened by such a serene face, he left a kiss on her. As soon as he did, the sleeping lips spread to form a happy smile. "I wonder what you're dreaming about. Say, why won't you invite me over there?" From that strange night on, in a paroxysm of lies, Amber got Tristan to agree to become a more or less official couple. Thus she demanded an engagement ring and did not hesitate to walk the streets locked to his arm. Soon it wasn't enough for her anymore. Eager, voracious even, she couldn't merely settle for the girlfriend status. She needed more. She needed to surpass the women who preceded her, her invisible rival, whose shadow was always looming like a Damocles' sword. Correct me on that, I don't know. So she dragged Tristan to wedding shops while dreaming of a perfect ceremony of her big day. The magazines, the advertisements, the television, the whole world was yelling at her that was what happiness was. So wasn't it only natural for her to embrace it to the fullest? Wasn't it every little girl's dream? Marriage was promised and sold like a real-life fairy tale application. There was a very expensive, beautiful dress, a princess dress. The bride had to be the story's heroine, and everyone only had eyes for her. And then she would have at her service all of the cosmetic and superficial accessories in which the stars constantly baited. Famous singers all lived in some sort of permanent wedding. A strange and unlikely fantasy. Amber too wanted to taste this heaven the world was constantly singing the praises of. So she pushed Tristan to please her. He proposed to her and both of them organised a ceremony with great pomp. But she's still that— what the hell? She's still the little girl that he kidnapped. I haven't forgotten about that. Game! I haven't forgotten about that! On that day, Amber, still so frail, seemed to shine more brightly than ever. On that day, Amber thought she had finally erased all traces of her rival. But it still wasn't enough. The life she was living didn't seem perfect enough just yet. She still needed something else to be entirely fulfilled. She wished to start a family. After all, the world had sold marriage to her as a never-ending fairy tale, but she still needed a goal to keep on living. And it was said that her biological role, her natural role, was of course to procreate. True women should also yearn for becoming mothers, an unchanging law that was probably written somewhere in a fragment of DNA code. True women had the duty of having a child, preferably a girl, so that she could educate her with the same moral codes she had received. Her living doll to play with, brush her hair, play tea time with. You ought to busy yourself with something. Fill your existence or access to some kind of eternal fantasy, it depends. A desire, a project as a couple. Or just an implicit order that came. Amber had read and seen everywhere that those who didn't want kids were automatically unhappy without realizing it. Immature, almost disabled by selfishness or neurosis. Children should bear fruits, just like the princess could only be revealed as such by a prince. That's where again with the Cinderella shit. Amber didn't know it yet, but the clock had started ticking long ago when it was dangerously approaching its final moment. What does that mean? What does that mean? Tristan Mallory took rather coldly the eagerness of the young girl to propose. He did his best to clumsily claim that they had more than enough time, that they would see that later, that he was ready to wait, but she kept insisting more and more. She still looks the same. Months went by, and the young girl never got tired of reciting all the things she intended to do with that providential baby, describing from A to Z how she would dispense their education and the accessories that would be necessary. Her biggest wish was to give birth to a little girl she could gussy up as much as she wanted. She was sighing, while imagining how she would never shower her with gifts, how she would shower her with gifts, how she would go shopping with her and evolve into kind of a cool and friendly big sister-like mother. Scolding? She was way too afraid that her future child would hate her to even think of it. Her angel had to love her. It was obvious she should be a good mother and everything would go for the best in the best of all worlds. Amber spared no argument to convince Tristan. Motherhood became in turn the realization of a little girl's dream, the logical and infallible consequence of a lasting relationship, infallible, the greatest proof of it that could ever be, a way to conform to the norm. You still with me? I'm kind of losing it here. Months slowly, dreadfully went by, to the rhythm of Amber's growing obsession. She was always eagerly awaiting a sign, watching out her body for the indication of good news. Try after try, she repeated that this time would be the one. However, she had to face the fact that something was wrong, that something wasn't working. She might as well desperately attempt her hardest. She wasn't pregnant. She still wasn't. A shower of doubts started pouring down her mind. Tristan tried to minimize the problem, assured her that it wasn't a big deal, that it would happen someday, and that they had so many other things to do together. But Amber wasn't listening anymore. She absolutely wanted to go see a doctor to get her body checked up, to understand the problem and fix it. She wasn't going to give up so close to her goal. Her partner avoided the subject as much as possible, appeared distant, and refused any medical checkup. Every time the young girl approached him to talk, he gritted his teeth, feeling that the situation was becoming more and more tense. She was getting too close to the truth, and he couldn't afford it. There were too many things at stake. What is he hiding? So he held on. He tried all he could to reassure his protege, to convince her to get rid of those unwanted thoughts. But Tristan, what happened? Music turned off again. It keeps doing that. Shoulders yielding under the weight of his burden, was too tired to anticipate Amber's every move. He could see the disaster coming, even if he had foreseen it. What? One day, while he was at work, she took the opportunity to go to a doctor who resided in the city centre hospital. She explained the situation and begged for him to help her bear children. He gave a long sigh while staring at her from head to toe, and in an unctuous voice he kindly whispered to her, "You know, there's no need to try that hard. You'll only hurt yourself further. Don't bury your head in the sand. You're very well aware of your sterility, aren't you? It's not the end of the world, you know. There are assisted procreation techniques that work very well nowadays, like in vitro fertilization, for example. Why don't you think about it?" The young doctor had tried to be as positive and comforting as he could, but the harm had already been done. Amber was in shock. Her dreams had just crumbled to pieces in an ocean of dust and litter. She left the hospital completely distraught, speechless, stiff, moving as mechanically as a robot. She heard nothing of the last kind words the doctor pronounced. All she knew was that she had to go home. Once outside, the sky's blinding grey light made her lose her bearings. She was in a city where she had always lived, yet the buildings, the cars, the people passing by, they had all turned ghostly and haggard silhouettes in a dark, upside-down world. Her sight became blurred little by little as she staggered aimlessly. The city crumbled into a gigantic pile of ashes. The voices of the pedestrians around her corrupted into an inaudible language, metallic and meaningless. What's happening? Amber managed to reach the park, instinctively not really knowing how. A terrifying dread was seizing her from the inside. Unable to see, unable to understand anymore, she let herself fall on the grass, pupils wide open. All of a sudden, the grey filtered images of her past came back to her, and reality brutally hit her in the stomach. It's impossible. Why? Why me? Even though I am normal. I'm not trash, no, it's impossible. My dream. I wanted to be happy. She remembered the mirror. The mirror! The crude light above the mirror that showed her all her flaws, all her imperfections. The excruciating need to be perfect on every screen that we're constantly seen. To be seen, to be admired, to have every corner of yourself analysed. Never relax. Be irreproachable. Take care of everything. Hide everything. Keep everything deep inside, even if the fragile surface is going to crack under the weight of lies. The mirror, in front of which she carefully put on makeup for long minutes, that miraculous product that could erase those damned imperfections, those damned traces of humanity. Shave her legs, not leaving a single hair. Frame her brows. Choose the best outfit possible to show herself to advantage. Add a layer of makeup on her face to make the identity disappear in favour of a single form of beauty, a majestic beauty, an artificial beauty, impossible to attain. The mirror, in front of which she would weigh herself, in front of which she would tell herself that she was what she eats. Become thinner, become more beautiful, more desirable. Throw up the excess. Keep only what's essential. Admire yourself in front of the mirror. Throw up that unwanted vital pulsation. Throw up what's dirty to become cleaner, inside and outside. Destroy the dirtiness, everything that is dirty. Become pure, immaculate, perfect. The mirror, the eyes of others, the permanent mirror, vanity, believing you exist, destroying yourself bit by bit, becoming unable to survive by yourself, to stand the growing loneliness, the prophetic struggle against your own being. Mind almighty against the body, forcing it into submission, forcing it to remodel itself to fit your every wish, forcing it to become soul's one and only avatar. Not being able to accept yourself anymore. The endless impetus after time, nature, constant effort to kill yourself, to present yourself from existing. In each real body fantasized a corpse's body. The mirror is scrutinizing the depths of my heart. It knows everything, it sees everything. I can't escape it, I cannot escape. Locked in by her obsessions, Amber convulsed frantically while letting out piercing shrieks. It has to stop! Has to stop! Suddenly the emotional pressure became so strong that she completely lost all sense of reality and her brain cracked up. She didn't move anymore. She no longer pronounced a single word. Motionless on the park's grass, eyes still fixed in a terrified posture, you could believe she was dead if she hadn't been breathing faintly. The world seemed to freeze, explode, die in an insufferable shriek of agony. Her world. The clock had struck midnight. Cinderella wasn't ready to give up on her dream. It was 7:30 p.m. On that beautiful yet cold autumn day, the wind shook the frail trees branches across the street. Tristan Mallory, what? It's a start, made his slow, tired way. A whirlwind of leaves caught his attention and he stopped to contemplate them for a few minutes. A spray of colour danced around him. Fragments of red, orange, yellow spread at random, forming a mosaic that stretched on for as far as the eye could see, endlessly. A rush of beauty in that grey and fuming city, in that noisy metropolis that was constantly exhaling bad air. What? Coming back to his senses, the 30-year-old man shook his head. Now wasn't the time to be daydreaming. He had to go home. Ambre was waiting. As usual, she would probably seek advice about her future pregnancy. She would ask what name they should give their kid and how they should decorate his room. As usual, she'd worry about not seeing her stomach swell. And as usual, he would have to minimize the problem and pretend it was no big deal to delay the unavoidable. The long day had already weighed on his shoulders. But if he was completely honest, work wasn't the most tiring thing in his life. After all, an honest, well-paid job represented somewhat of a luxury these days. Like any model employee, he consciously accomplished the task handed to him. No more, no less. No, what was really destroying him was a completely different form of fatigue, an appalling and crushing solitude that had been shadowing him for years. Ever since his wife, we're getting it continued, had lost her head? The light tinkling of the front door opening brought him back to earth. He was already at his flat. Ambre should have been there to greet him with a wild smile. Instead, a sad and silent living room was waiting for him. What? Goosebumps travelled down his spine as he entered the room. Where was she? Could it be? Could it be happening again? Driven by an almost desperate urge, he didn't even bother to hang his coat correctly and began slamming all the doors, one after the other, hoping she would only be sleeping in a corner. What's happening? Each time the same emptiness answered his pleas. He felt a rising dread within. His last hope, the last door, the forbidden room beyond. He opened it slightly and peeked inside. Of course, there was no one. That would have been too easy. He fell heavily onto the sofa. The crushing solitude came back in full force, crushing him again and again, wounding his face with invisible cuts, the cuts of time. It was happening again. Ambre had gone crazy again. She had run away once more. And once more he would have to find her before she got hurt. He would have to play the part of a stranger, impassive, let on nothing of the torment devouring him alive. What? All of a sudden Tristan Mallory felt immensely exhausted. He held his head in his hands, staring at the floor for long minutes. Nah, he needed to calm down even just a little so that he could pretend he wasn't affected by it. Then after what felt like an eternity, he abruptly got to his feet. He gathered all the framed pictures that had been on the furniture and stowed them away in a closet. The memories needed to be out of sight. If Ambre discovered the pictures of her happily alter ego too quickly, she'd bound to ask questions. This time he had to hide them better than in the last cycle. He had to stall for time. He stored them in a drawer and locked it. The frames didn't take up too much space. After all, there wasn't many of them. He had put the same ones on the buffet. She never noticed it. When he was sure that there was no more pictures sticking out, Tristan put his coat back on and rushed outside. It was chilly, a bit dark, but there was still enough light to see by. It was the ideal time to take a walk, at least that's what he thought. As he hurried along the sidewalk, the 30-year-old man was anything but relaxed. Incredibly nervous, he walked around places that were most familiar to him, looking for a serenity that seemed to be definitely in reach. He had to find her. He had to bring her back home. While passing a park near his home, Tristan Mallory suddenly heard a high-pitched, almost inaudible plea. His heart jumped, and he stopped. What? In the dim light of the setting sun, he made out the silhouette of a little girl sitting with her head bowed down. Tears were rolling down her cheeks. Afraid of startling her, he approached slowly and took a closer look. He was indeed standing in front of his wife, Ambre Mallory, who used to be so charming. She was pretty, but seemed to have aged prematurely. White locks here and there brightened up her long hair to the point where you couldn't tell her age anymore. With that appearance, she could have been an old lady, yet she was barely in her 30s, like Tristan, who didn't appear any younger. What? Tristan is a good guy. What? Backhunched, looking haggard, eyes more lifeless than ever. She was crying. I was wrong about Tristan, apparently. Her clothes were crumbled. She had neither a coat nor a scarf, and there were scratches on several spots of her skin as if she had been in a fight. Had she rolled on the floor again? Had she harmed herself? Regardless, she had most likely gotten hurt during her run away. The park was completely deserted, and she seemed to have been there for a while. She must have run away several hours ago, probably in the early afternoon. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been in a state where she'd have to be able to cry. She would have stayed motionless like a doll, unable to show the slightest sign of life, until finally she'd come back to her senses. For a second, Tristan Mallory felt the temptation to abandon her there, to leave her to her fate, but very quickly he mentally chastised himself. He couldn't do that. She was his wife. He loved her. He had to take care of her, no matter what. But even so, sometimes he had almost wished she would get lost for good, that she'd disappear so he wouldn't have to live through this endless circle again. His conscience protested that he would feel too guilty, that he wouldn't be able to forgive himself. There was no way out. He had to live with his burden. So he placed himself in front of her and asked in a soft voice, "Something wrong?" At first his wife seemed not to hear him. She choked on her sobs, hiccuped and shuddered. He was now sure of it. She had forgotten everything once again. Patiently, Tristan stroked her hair and repeated, "Why are you crying? What happened?" It took her long minutes to calm down a bit, but she eventually wiped her tears and answered with a faint voice, "I don't know. I think I lost something important. Really important, but I can't remember what it was." Tristan sighed, feeling a mixture of compassion and pity. Always that nagging obsession, that curse. She seemed so lost, so vulnerable. He wanted to hold it so tightly that her sadness would melt away, and at the same time, within him, a voice was telling him that he shouldn't be too forceful, that he shouldn't have taken advantage of her weakness. Ambre didn't recognize him anymore after all. He had to wait, even if the desire to ease his own loneliness was suffocating. The woman he loved was there, just in front of him, and he couldn't do so much as touch her. So he tried not to lose face, to look reassuring. Yet in front of this sad little girl, he did not feel confident at all. "Are you all done? Where are your mum and dad?" "I don't know." "Do you live far away from here?" "I don't know." "What's your name?" "Amber." "Well, Amber, you can't stay out here in the wind. You're going to catch a cold eventually, and you don't want to get sick, do you?" "No, I hate being sick." "See, you gotta warm yourself up somewhere. The night's getting close." "But I don't know where to go." "In that case, what do you think about going to my place? It's not very far away, and it'll make a much better sleeping place than the swing." Amber seemed wary, but she had no other choice but to follow him. He gently reached a hand out to her for the first time she didn't realize. They were the eyes of a little girl stuck in a woman's body, the eyes of a woman haunted by her little girl obsession, the eyes of a trapped person. He thought it a good idea to force a smile, to appear reassuring. He thought, even with this fatigue, Tristan Mallory showed the most convincing smiling face he could and caught her hand so fine, so frail, to help her get to her feet. The young girl's steps were wobbly and weak. She had probably not eaten all day long. Carefully, he led her to his place while making sure she wouldn't trip. The 30-year-old man removed his coat and shut the door behind him. "Make yourself at home, I'll cook you something." Passing through the kitchen, he turned on the light in the living room so that his flat would look less gloomy. While roaming through his fridge looking for a good meal idea, he periodically stole several glances over the counter. In the living room, Amber was still walking around, a bit wild, still on the defensive. She explored, admiring the ornaments. Yes, it was a bland house, almost, and then she finds a drawer. Tristan's being distracted. She escaped to the hallway, tried to find a bathroom. She found it quickly enough. She noticed all the doors were wide open except for one. Strangely, before she had even had time to think about it, she was drawn to that doorway. Intrigued, Amber felt magnetically attracted. Just one peek was all she wanted, but she struggled to see anything through the crack. A frightening tomb. A frightening tomb where he stored the corpses of his wife? Nope. The little girl pushed the door open, entered the room and switched the lights on. In the kitchen, Tristan sighed. He was cooking Amber's favourite meal, but his eyes were too itchy. Shrugging implies he noticed his wife's absence. She must have found her room, he mentally grumbled. His hands were mechanically repeating the steps necessary to prepare the meal, but his mind was elsewhere. Little by little, he slowed down until he stopped completely. Still as a robot, he let himself fall against the wall. God, what have I done to deserve this? When is she going to come back? When is she going to wake up? His face in his hands? He cried silently in the empty living room. Will my tears reach you one day? When he felt better, he headed towards the forbidden room and caught Amber playing with stuffed animals. His gaze softened. "I suppose I can't do anything," he thought to himself. Without a word, he went to sit next to her. On the bed, the young woman was moving the stuffed animal's hands while making him speak. In her weak voice, she was narrating a stuffed animal tea party and seemed to be enjoying herself very much. The light was back in her eyes. Suddenly, she got mad at the plump cow and scolded her harshly. "It's dirty! Stop it right now! You're making a mess!" "Ali, what did I say? It's dirty, you gotta behave yourself. And don't roll on the floor." "Yeah, it's all the same stuff." She sent the cow in the corner. Yes, replaced it with a pony. Oh, shit. Stuffed animal. Yes, blue monkey. She finally noticed its presence. It's a repeating cycle. And here's where she's gonna find it. it was heartbreaking. He remembered the blissful days, already long gone, with difficulty. But he still remembered them. He remembered that beautiful young lady, her adorable smile, her cheerfulness, their promises. That evening, Tristan Mallory admired little Amber as she wolfed down her food, half amused, half distracted. Seeing her happy suited his heart a little, but at the same time it was heartbreaking. He remembered the blissful days, already long gone, with difficulty, but he still remembered them. Yeah, I said that. Okay, skip over to this. In front of Amber's overflowing enthusiasm, Tristan couldn't help but smile faintly, almost pitifully. Yeah, that's it, indeed. He kept telling himself, as if to reassure himself. All I'm doing is keeping her around until she remembers who she is and what she lost. Waiting for her to remember, even if she managed to someday. Tristan Mallory could have been an ordinary man, with an ordinary life if his daily life hadn't been changed dramatically a few years ago due to a dire event. Since that day he was a victim of an infernal circle, an ordeal that seemed never ending. He had been so happy, so fulfilled, with that woman he loved, the woman he had married. Amber, so charming, who he had sworn his life to. Amber had gone mad. He had never realised how obsessed she was about having children until their doctor announced to them that she was sterile. A declaration that seemed overcome able to him, but to her it was as if she had been dealt the death penalty. They could have put themselves in the hands of science, or had just given up on that project altogether to make a new one. They could have been satisfied with their everyday life, but not for her. Amber wasn't willing to let the little girl's dream go, to change a comma of the idyllic fairy tale she was promised. It was indeed. It had to go that way, and that way only. Then the pressure she put on herself had the upper hand. She couldn't be perfect. She couldn't conform herself with exactitude to all those absurd norms imposed to her. Something in her head, like a fragile thread, broke. She had an emotional breakdown. Right in front of her husband's Tristan bewildered eyes, she dived in one go in a kind of insanity, as sudden as it was violent, from which she didn't want to return. Refusing to face reality, she escaped in a long dream, a long nightmare, where she had become untouchable. Amber reverted to childhood, where everything was easier, where everything was still possible. She didn't recognize her husband anymore, or didn't want to recognize him. So he had to pretend to not know her each time, tame her each time, until she would have had a new breakdown and everything would reset again. He had to try to make her happy and help her get better each time, even if it meant bending to her every will, even if it meant living in a world of pretend, even if it meant unrequited love on his part. During this cycle, one more intrigued. Amber took advantage of his absence to open a drawer she had never touched before. She had found a key in her guardian's room. Inside was a big leather notebook. Convinced she had found a treasure, she grabbed it and opened it. It was a photo album. Spread on the pages were bright smiles and tender gestures. Browsing through the pictures, the little girl discovered her guardian, young and dashing, in the arms of a young lady. Dressed soberly and tastefully, she was strolling along the seashore with a shawl on her shoulders, or in a park holding an ice cream. But what caught her eye was a very specific picture that towered in the centre of the album. Tristan, wearing a suit, was leading his lover out of a church with clumsy footsteps under a shower of flower pots. She looked so happy, so fulfilled in her large, refined white dress that Amber was stupefied. All the more so, the bride looked exactly like her. She's so pretty. What are you looking at? Tristan's sudden appearance made her jump, so much that she dropped the forbidden object. The 30-year-old man's gaze darkened immediately. You searched through the closet to see what my wife looked like, did you? She answered in a shaky voice guiltily. Yes, are you going to scold me? Of course not, I just would have preferred that you didn't see it. Why? Why don't you ever talk about her? I want to know. He sighed, appearing upset, as he looked into her eyes that had never been able to resist for long. He sat on the couch and told her everything, pretty much. It's repeating the same things if it's not completely obvious to you. Amber listened with wide-eyed attention. She liked that story very much. Tristan seemed to briefly get younger as he evoked into the past. Yep, and their peaceful, ordinary, everyday life was something the little girl envied. Caught up in it, Tristan sighed again, head down as a heavy, crushing silence came between them. Could anyone imagine his suffering? Could anyone imagine what it felt like to be in his shoes? To see that your loved one can't even recognize you anymore? The little girl stuck in a woman's body asked him why he was crying. He wanted to scream. Because I love you. Because we were so happy together. Because I can't live without you. Because I need your presence, your affection. Because I'm all alone. Because you're my wife, the woman I love. I beg of you, come back to me. Get a hold of yourself and snap out of it. But it was useless. He had already tried to shake her, to talk her like she was his wife. But if she did, she would have remained terrified. She would have moved away from him. She would cry, telling him he shouldn't hurt her. So he gave up. He stopped trying to get his role back. He kept pretending and suffering, and it got worse every day. Like a sly disease trying to consume him further. Fake a smile, forget about yourself, don't think about anything other than reassuring her. How could he go on like that without being worn out? Tristan was no Superman. He was often on the verge of losing it. He despaired to see no progress even. No hope for healing. When Amber even returned to normal, he didn't believe it anymore because of the disillusions. One evening when he was feeling especially worked up, he dared to yell at the young lady who was doing her best to please him. He immediately regretted it, but the deed was done. Amber's voice trembled dangerously. While getting close, he noticed her hands were shaking frenetically. Eyes wide open, soaked until she exploded. Yeah, she just wants him to love him. And she's wondering if he's not good enough. But Amber, what are you talking about? Tristan held her in his arms. He couldn't understand such intense and sudden sobs. How could she believe for a second that she had been beaten by someone else? Reassured by his gesture, Amber wanted to explain herself. Your wife. I can see that her departure left you very sad. I wanted to bring a smile back to your face. I want to take her place so you forget about her. For a split second, Tristan was breathless. It was surreal. He would have pinched himself to make sure he wasn't dreaming, but no, the pain in his chest was far too real, too pitiful carved in him. Amber, locked up in her little girl's dream, was becoming jealous of herself, and she was trying to surpass her happy alter ego of the past. She was trying to destroy herself from her husband's memories, as if to rewrite the past, like some kind of unconscious suicide. How could he answer such a declaration? How could he find the right words? Catching his breath with difficulty, the 30-year-old man took Amber by the shoulders and looked in her eyes for a long time. He had to wake her. He had to make her realize. He had to think of a way to tell her. After a brief sigh, he affirmed, Listen, I'll never be able to forget my wife, alright? It's impossible, but that doesn't mean I don't want you. It's the exact opposite, actually. You're very dear to me, Amber. You hear me? I need you. You already have her place. So please stop crying. Don't make it even harder than it is for me. Oh my god. It all makes sense. What made you think I'd abandon you, huh? I can't believe it. All this weird stuff in the game earlier on, and it all makes sense now. She thinks she loves him. Yep. He loves her too. He loves her so much that it makes him sick. My god. Impressive story, impressive. For real, you're not treating me like a kid. Of course not. Then prove it. What do you mean? Yep. And now this isn't weird. I mean, yeah, he's kissing her now. That earlier on, this was just horrible when you think about it. But now it makes sense, I guess. Now it makes complete sense. If only she knew how much he loves her. He had so many things he would have wished to tell her. So many that the flood of words blocked his throat and nothing could come out. I'm sorry, Tristan, for judging you, man. I did not know this was you. So for lack of words to make her understand his feelings. Yep. It was just a dream, wasn't it? When you wake up, you'll be a child again, right? The only answer he got was a light groaning. Sobbing by such a serene face, he left the kiss. As soon as he did, the sleeping night spread to form a happy smile. I wonder what you're dreaming about. Yep. One more, unbeknown to her, he mimicked a fake wedding ceremony, a fake joy to please her. Never again with a fresh and innocent smile did the pictures return. The masquerade drew out until Amber started to ask to have children and discovered the truth one way or another, which would invariably make her plunge into madness as her obsession was so strong. To counter these numerous relapses, the 30-year-old man often went to the hospital with his wife to discuss with the psychiatrist in charge of her and review the possible changes. So Tristan, how's Amber lately? Has her condition improved a little? Not yet. The doctor frowned in a compassionate look. He was in charge of the Mallory case for some time now, and he felt particularly powerless in front of such avoidance on part of that young lady. He had tried it all, without success. You never know. Is that why you called me, doctor? He grabbed a pen and played with it nervously while staring at Tristan. No, to be honest, I knew Amber would relapse again. One of my colleagues went to talk to me the other day. Apparently your wife stopped by the hospital to do the usual drama queen. She ran into an intern that didn't really know how to deal with that situation. I regularly explain her case to the newbies, but between theory and practice, the poor boy meant well. He told her the truth while trying to sugarcoat it, to make her reflect on it. She had another anxiety attack, obviously. By the time he told her to sit down and call for me, she had already gone. If it had been me, I would have tried to buy you some time. Anyway, what's done is done. There's no need to apologise, doctor. It's not your fault. You know as well as I do she'd regularly lose it, and lying to her about it doesn't do any good. The fact remains that I booked today's appointment so that I could check on how you're faring and how she's been since that unfortunate incident with my colleague. Nothing's changed. The doctor sighed. He stuck the pen in his coat pocket and stopped walking. While nervously scratching his beard, he mumbled in an understanding tone, "Frankly, I'm impressed. I really don't know how you can keep going like this, Tristan. In your place, I wouldn't be able to. But I still have to make you see a doctor too. We never know. You're not safe from having a breakdown just like her." "I totally understand, doctor. Every cycle. I try to do things a bit differently, but in the end, I'm tired, worn out. I lost all hope. So all that I can do for her is make her as happy as possible during that golden time where she's living a perfect childhood. All that's left of a woman I love is a shadow, so I hope she'll eventually find rest." The two men gazed at Amber, who was in the hospital's hallways in the distance, playing like a little girl. Suddenly Tristan broke the silence, his voice trembling. "Sometimes I wonder, is she ever going to get out of that prison she built around herself to avoid suffering? Is she ever going to accept to face the outside world? Or is she going to keep living in an eternal golden dream where everything's perfect? I wish I could promise you she'll wake from that long nightmare, but sometimes inside me thinks she'll never call her obsessions into question. Which is an immense waste. Because of that, she's forsaken herself from the life that could have been wonderful." Meanwhile, Amber was cheerfully having a chat to what she thought to be another girl of her age. In reality, the young woman was babbling deliriously with dead eyes to her own reflection in the mirror, but still stuck in that never-ending dream free of hardships. "You know what? I've got a lover, yes, for real. I'm even going to marry him soon, and we'll be happy until the end of time, and have lots of kids, just like in fairy tales. How could it be otherwise? You're right, every day will be a celebration. If only I didn't have that strange feeling. I think I've lost something important, really important, but I can't remember what it was." The end? Ah. Well, I mean, at last. What? Ah! It's over. Ah! Well, that was Ambre, or Amber. I found out later on that it was just the French spelling of Amber, so that was stupid on my part. I mean, I lost my camera about 1,000,000 times throughout the recording. I lost everything. I had to convert. I had to save the footage. I'm probably going to lose the footage I just did. Oh my god, the embarrassment. I'll find a way to get the credits back up. But yeah, it's insane. I can't believe it, to be honest. You would have thought that this was all just a sick, horrible story about some pervert or whatever, but then no, it's all about this sad, heartbreaking story about a girl who lost her mind, and that was Amber. I mean, what a shocker, what a twist. For me, it was the longest recording session of all time, because it just would never end. Too many mistakes, and I think that affected my experience of the game a bit. I think the game does deserve a bit more credit to it, because it was pretty interesting and it had a good twist to it. The writing was a bit, now to be honest, the writing was a bit messed up, but I think that's generally because it's a French game, maybe, and the translation isn't very good, I guess. It was mostly okay, I don't know why this always happens, but I always lose my face cam in long sessions like this. I always do. We'll just look at Ione. It happened nearly every episode. So I just don't prepare enough. So, I mean, I misjudged Tristan. I misjudged this game. To the author, I'm sorry. I know you'll never see this anyway, but I'm sorry. But to be fair, you did lead us on there for a while. You did sort of screw up my mind. fuck's sake. Yeah. Excuse my language, but that is Amber. That is the full playthrough. I was going to split this into multiple parts because I was afraid I wasn't going to get anything up. I'm recording this on Monday, by the way, so you're watching it. If you are watching it, it was uploaded on a Wednesday of the same week, so I was too late. So of course I had to reschedule it. But yeah,